Opening night of the 2024-2025 NHL season is set for tomorrow night. Welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm your host, Sophia Monteforte, alongside Massimo, Buonagurio, and Brady, Welsh. Despite the NHL Global Series that already played in Europe this past weekend, the rest of the league is making their debut tomorrow. We will get our first official look at the newly introduced Utah Hockey Club replacing the Arizona Coyotes. A new team with new fans and a new arena are joining the league. A new season also calls for the ending of old contracts. Igor Shesterkin is on the last year of his contract with the New York Rangers, and the Rangers are looking to give him a big-time contract extension. But what is the price that the teams will both agree on? Many fans consider him the best goaltender in the league, so what would then make him the highest-paid goaltender? Following the tragic Game 7 loss in last season's Stanley Cup final, let's see how Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers will bounce back after letting the trophy slip from their hands. Now, we have already seen the Sabres and the Devils in their series this past weekend, but the Sabres were coming off a little slow. What are some other teams you guys are expecting to underperform this year? Massimo, start with you.
Well, I think it's going to be the Carolina Hurricanes. I mean, they're coming off of an outstanding year last year. I mean, they had a pretty decent playoff, but they had an outstanding regular season. Second in Metro, third in points in all over the league, East and West, including, and the only teams that were above them was Dallas, and the Rangers was the only reason that they were second in the Metro. And you would think with a team that's this good, they would make some signings and they would get some contracts signed in the offseason. And they got their contract signed. They got Seth Jarvis, they got Martin Necas, and they got Jacob Slavin on new contracts. With all their unrestricted free agents, they pretty much lost every single one of them. And the biggest losses that they have was Jake Gensel, one of their top wingers they got at the deadline, Teravainen, who is a franchise leader in points with 415 as a left winger, and their two key players in their defensive core, and Brett Pesce and Brady Shea. And I mean, you got to cut some slack. It's a new GM. He's been with the franchise since 2014, but every player he brought in to replace these guys, they're all downgrades. And you could make an argument for Shane Walker and Shane Goldsberry, whatever his name is. But he's just, the only play, especially with, I'm a Rangers fan and I had to watch Jack Roslovic play. And every time I watch him play, I cringe. And, if they're replacing him with Teravainen, who he's one of their best players in their franchise, I just don't think that they can perform like they did last year. And if they in offseason, if they wanted to improve their chances of winning the cup, the offseason, if I'm a fan of the Carolina Hurricanes, I'm not happy, and I don't think they could do that.
Yeah, those are good picks. Brady, what do you think?
I honestly think the Metro is weak enough where the Hurricanes could probably slide into that top 3 spot, but I don't know. I do think they regress especially with losing Jake Gensel. That was huge.
Mm-hmm. And what about your team? Who do you think is going to underperform this year?
I think the San Jose Sharks, a pretty obvious one. I know they got Macklin Celebrini. He's going to be a stud, but I do think they are going to pretty much repeat what the Blackhawks did last year with Connor Bedard. Just let the number 1 overall pick get some experience, get some time in the NHL, and put up a lot of points, but still going to have a top 5 draft pick. But not to worry in San Jose, because they do have the best farm system in the NHL. They have a new coach in Ryan Warsofsky, and I think they have a really bright future ahead of them.
I agree with those picks, but I'm also thinking the Columbus Blue Jackets are not really going to show out this year. They have that bad reputation with a weak roster every year, especially weak goaltending. But on the other side of it, they have the teams that are always performing well, the consistent teams like the Edmonton Oilers and the Colorado Avalanche. What teams do you guys think are going to be our dark horse for the NHL this year?
I have a pretty controversial pick, but I'm picking the Ottawa Senators. I think Steve Spagos did a great job this offseason. He acquired David Perron, he acquired Mike Amadio, and he acquired 2 years ago's Vezina winner, Linus Ullmark, fixing their goalie issue that they struggled with last year. They did finish with 86 points. They do have a great core in Claude Giroux. He's aging like fine wine. They have Brady Tkachuk, the captain, elite player, even more elite name. And they also have Drake Batherson, who broke out last year. And don't forget Tim Stützle, an assist master, 52 assists, absolutely outstanding. So I think they are going to make the playoffs this year. Just sneak in there. They have a shot, especially with how weak the Metro is.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Massimo? What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think Ottawa is a very good pick. And I have to ask you a question. If you think that if they end up not being dark horse, do you think Brady Tkachuk is going to reconsider being on the Senators, and you think he's going to go somewhere else?
That's a great question, but probably not, because I don't see Brady Tkachuk as kind of that guy to request a trade. So I think he'll stay loyal to the Senators.
Yeah.
No matter what.
You know, another team that also, they had a really good offseason, and I think is going to be my dark horse, is got to be the Nashville Predators. I mean, they had, on paper, they had one of the best off seasons in the NHL, and literally within minutes of the free agency starting, they signed Stamkos, they signed Marchessault, they signed Brady Shea, and they did it literally in all just a couple minutes. And then also a huge win in their offseason was re-signing Saros to an 8-year deal. And, you know, they've checked so many boxes. And especially last year, they shocked a lot of people with the players they had. And their top line, Forsberg, O'Reilly, and Nyquist, I mean, they were one of the best offensive lines in the league according to stats. And you know, people didn't even think they were going to make the playoffs. And, you know, they were, you know, nowhere near. And then at one point, they just won 16 of 18 games. They snuck into the wild card. And, you know, their playoff run came up short to the Canucks. Mm-hmm. And in recent years, they haven't really been good in the playoffs. Their last good playoff run was in 2017, where they won 3 rounds against, you know, teams that they easily beat. And their team was very good. You know, and since that year, you know, from 2018 to 2023, they've only won 1 round in the playoffs, and that was 2018. So they won more rounds in that 2017 year than they did in just since 2018. Yeah. And, you know, their GM, Trotz, he was appointed in 2023, and what he saw with this team, and the one thing that they need is playoff experience. And they definitely get that in Stamkos, and they get that because Stamkos won it in 2021 and 2022 back-to-back years in the Lightning. And then with Jonathan Marchessault, won it in 2023 with the Vegas Golden Knights, their first in franchise history. And, you know, they checked all the boxes that they needed to in this offseason. And if they continue to perform with the players they have, especially with Roman Josi, their captain, who's one of the best puck-handling defensemen in the league, and Saros, their goaltender, I think they could be a true dark horse. And not only do I think that they could definitely, you know, the Central is tough with the Avalanche and the Dallas Stars, but they could definitely get first or second. I wouldn't be surprised. And they could definitely be a huge cup contender, and that's why they're my dark horse this year.
And a team you just mentioned there, actually my dark horse I think would be the Dallas Stars this year. They're pretty consecutive with making the playoffs every year. And they have that one thing, like you also said, being able to sign those players and being able to be strong in that draft so they can usually have that young team. But speaking of players, a team is only as good as its good roster, and players like Nathan MacKinnon are always big player makers each year. What players are you guys expecting to really perform well this year?
Well, I'm a little biased here. I am a New York Rangers fan, but I'm very excited to see Alexis Lafreniere play this year. I mean, he has improved every single year that he's played in the NHL, and he's got a bright future ahead of him. He's only 23. He turns 23 he's 22. He turns 23 this Friday. And he just gets better every year, and especially this year's playoffs. I mean, before years, he only had 2 goals in the playoffs. This year, he had 8 goals in the playoffs, and he just outperformed all the expectations. A lot of people, you know, he got drafted first overall in 2020, and the seasons that he had in the previous and after getting drafted, you know, they kind of didn't see much in him, but he's improved. Laviolette has brought the best out of him, and I think especially, and a crazy stat, when Lafreniere scores, the Rangers, especially with last year, the Rangers were 24-4-1, and 3 of those losses were in the playoffs, and 2 of them were against the Panthers, who eventually won the Stanley Cup. And the players that are able to bring the best out of him is the line that he's on with Trocheck and Panarin, 2 experienced players. And, you know, that's one of the best lines, and that's only New York's second line. And they are able to bring the best out of him, and Laviolette's able to bring the best out of him. And if he continues to perform like this, I think that he could be even the face of the Rangers in a couple years and one of the best players in the league in a few years.
Yeah, that's a really great pick and someone to watch. What about you, Brady?
I'm also going to be pretty biased as a Philadelphia Flyers fan. I am so excited to watch Matvei Michkov this year. He averaged the most points by a draft-eligible player in KHL history, even beating the likes of Alex Ovechkin and Evgeny Malkin. So I am so excited to watch him play. He was lighting it up in the preseason. He led the Flyers in points in the preseason, and he's only 19 years old, and his resume is already really good. And also, I think John Tortorella, contrary to popular belief, I think he will bring the best out of him. Everybody has their own opinion on Torts, but one thing that many people can agree on, he will bring the best out of every single player on his team, and I think there is no coach that Michkov would rather play with than Torts.
And being a Rangers fan myself, you actually got me looking at Alexei myself. So with the first puck drop of opening day being less than 24 hours away, we will soon see our predictions were right. For Massimo Buonagurio and Brady Welsh, I'm Sophia Monteforte. Thanks for watching and have a great night.
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning into this edition of Penn State Sports Night. We hope you liked that segment.
And we're sure there's other Penn State Sports Night segments that you are going to love as well. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.
And check us out on social media for updates and behind the scenes clips and pics. Follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action.
For all of us here at the Belisari Media Center, we are
Penn State Sports Night.